Scrum framework is a widely used Agile methodology to ensure that all the projects are completed on time, and the end result is of the highest value. Lately, more and more industries have begun to adopt Scrum methodology to create a more agile environment for their projects. It initially started in the software development sector, but Scrum has become widely used across many industries since then. A recent survey conducted stated that 97% of organizations that participated in the study will continue to use Scrum in their future projects. The Scrum process works in incremental iterations known as sprints during the entire lifespan of the project. The first step to start any iteration, or sprint, is to plan for it. It is a crucial step in ensuring the success of sprint. Before we dive deep into sprint planning meeting, let us understand what are the types of Scrum meetings we have. So, let's get started. There are 5 main types of Scrum meetings held regularly by Scrum team. Firstly, we have daily stand-up meeting. The daily stand-up meeting takes place every day. The team members get together at a specific time, usually at the beginning of the day, to discuss the following aspects. All the tasks that were completed yesterday. Tasks that will be completed today. Disruptions or obstructions faced by the team in their work. It is a short meeting that does not last for longer than 15 minutes, and it is crucial in creating transparency and accountability among team members. Next is sprint planning meeting. The sprint planning meeting occurs at the beginning of each sprint to estimate all the product backlog items, which will be completed in the current sprint duration. Topics like team capacity, prioritization of tasks, and the goal of the sprint are also addressed. After that, we have sprint review meeting. A sprint review takes place at the end of the sprint. The entire Scrum team gets together and showcases the end result of the sprint with the stakeholders. Here, the team receives feedback from the stakeholders, which can be implemented in future sprints for more effective results. Last one is sprint retrospective meeting. Once the review is complete, the Scrum team gets together to reflect upon the sprint and the feedback received. Improving processes and the internal development of the team is important. All the things that worked and did not work are discussed, and ways to improve future iterations are addressed. These meetings do not last for more than 1 hour. This Scrum meeting takes place between sprints and lasts around 1 or 2 hours. The product backlog refinement meeting involves the entire Scrum team, and allows them to evaluate their user stories, and understand what will be completed in the next sprint. It also gives team members a platform to discuss any concerns in any of the processes, and ways to make the sprint planning meeting move quicker and efficient. Hope you are clear with the types of Scrum meetings. Now, let's understand about sprint planning meeting in depth. Hello everyone. This is Eric from Invensis Learning, and I welcome you all to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe to Invensis Learning, and press the bell icon to get the latest updates. Now, let's see the agenda for the session. We shall begin our session with Introduction to Scrum Sprint. Then, we shall understand about sprint planning. Soon after that, we shall dive into our main topic, sprint planning meeting. Then, let's understand what is sprint goal. After that, prerequisites for sprint planning meeting. Post that, we will understand the roles involved in sprint planning meeting. Then we shall continue with the benefits of sprint planning meeting, followed by disadvantages of sprint planning meeting. Then, let's take a look at the structured process of sprint planning meeting. Next, let's understand about task reevaluation, and how reevaluation increases sprint planning meeting efficiency. And finally, let's understand what are the sprint planning mistakes to avoid. For effective development of any process, it is essential to figure out the following aspects. What is your goal? What steps have to be taken to achieve your goal? How it has to be achieved? The answer to the above questions is sprint planning meeting. To start with, let us start our discussion by taking a quick introduction to Scrum Sprint. A Scrum Sprint is a short and time-boxed period, when a Scrum team works to complete the task to produce a deliverable product. The duration of the Scrum Sprint process depends on the size of the project, and the team members. The ideal duration of the Scrum Sprint process is about 3 to 4 weeks. After understanding about Scrum Sprint, let us look into sprint planning. Sprint planning is a Scrum event that kicks off the sprint process. It discusses the roadmap for accomplishing the tasks in an optimized manner. The team determines the product backlog items that they are going to work on during the entire sprint process. The sprint planning process starts by setting an agenda for the entire process. If this is done correctly, the entire team feels motivated, challenged, and can become successful. Now, let us get into our core concept, that is sprint planning meeting. Most Scrum teams, approximately 86% of the organizations, hold sprint planning meeting before starting the sprint. They understand the importance of discussing all the important features of the project, based on how the product owner has prioritized them. In this meeting, the entire team asks questions that will help them develop and create user stories to help them complete their product backlog items in the sprint. Sprint planning meetings are one of the most important ceremonial events in Scrum. In recent days, these meetings have become part of organizational culture in most organizations. These meetings are held on the first day of a new sprint. The sprint planning meeting occurs at the beginning of each sprint, to estimate all the product backlog items, which will be completed in the current sprint duration. Topics like team capacity, prioritization of tasks, and the goal of the sprint are also addressed. It is essential to hold a sprint planning meeting before starting each sprint. The reason behind conducting sprint meeting is to determine each team member task and how they plan to achieve it. Next, let us know about sprint goal. Sprint goal is created during the sprint planning meeting and set an aim set for the sprint. It can be met through the implementation of product backlog. It guides the development team on why the product increment is built. The sprint goal gives the team some flexibility regarding the functionality implemented within the sprint. Now that you are familiar with sprint planning meeting, let us see what are its prerequisites. There are certain essential prerequisites to consider to hold sprint planning meeting. They are: sprint backlog, groomed and estimated user story, plan capacity of the team, determining velocity. Next, let's know about roles involved in the sprint planning meeting. A sprint planning process typically involves the entire team. First one, Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is the meeting planner for the entire process. Their main job is to ensure that the meeting goes effectively, and suitable product backlog items are added to the sprint backlog. The Scrum Master should manage time throughout the process, and ensure the sprint goal is aligned before the meeting is concluded. Next is Product Owner. The Product Owner is held responsible for proposing the sprint goal, and prioritizing the product backlog items. In fact, their responsibilities are quite specific. They are answerable when any question is raised. They are considered to be the ultimate resource to the team. Last one is the development team. The entire development team is responsible for the success of any meeting. It includes developers, designers, test engineers, and others. They determine the product backlog items they will be able to accomplish, and deliver on time. These people must be active enough during the sprint planning meeting as they need to have a thorough understanding of the upcoming sprint. After understanding about sprint planning meeting, let us see its advantages and followed by disadvantages. So, let us start by knowing its benefits. The major goal of sprint planning meeting is to ensure what each team member will be performing throughout the sprint process. Here are some of the other benefits of sprint planning meeting. Define your goals. If you are in the role of Scrum Master or a project manager, it becomes your responsibility to organize sprint planning meetings, to deliver quality work to clients. Since Scrum Master is the organizer of the meeting, they define two major aspects. The first goal is, what are major goals for the upcoming sprint, and milestones to achieve. Sprint goals should make the stakeholders understand what is going in the project. The second one is, sprint backlog. Sprint backlog is a detailed list of the items present in the product backlog. It contains necessary information of each task, that are necessary to deliver the task and time estimation for each task. Brings the team closer. Sprint planning is one of the best ways to bring the entire team together. All the team members should be equally treated without any bias. And it's responsibility of the Scrum Master. It is important to take input from every team member as it creates a sense of empowerment amongst the team and makes them remain loyal to the organization. A reference point to measure velocity. Firstly, let's understand what velocity is. It is the amount of work that a team can handle during a single sprint process. It is also known as the key metric in Scrum. If you wish to know how much your team can accomplish their goals, it can be done through a sprint planning meeting. Great communication platform. Sprint planning meetings provide a great communication platform for the team to express their views, set goals based on their capability and estimation. When the team gets a clear idea about their capabilities, they can set some realistic goals for the sprint. It prevents the team from setting undesirable and unachievable goals. Prioritize the deliverable. Here the product owner prioritizes the most important items on the top of the product backlog, so that the team can choose the top priority items from the product backlog and break them into small user stories. It helps to deliver the important requirements during the early phase of the sprint process. Hope, by now you are aware of the benefits of sprint planning meeting. Let's see its disadvantages in this section. If the sprint plan is made with poor estimations, it can lead to failure in tasks by the team members. Team members need to estimate their capacity and workload accurately for sprint planning to work. If that does not happen, the entire sprint can get delayed, causing failure. The sprint planning process can only work if all team members know how the Scrum framework works. They need to understand the concept of Agile completely and have expertise in working in sprints. If there is no understanding of the Scrum processes, they cannot be implemented successfully. Moving on, let's take a look at structured process of sprint planning meeting. We can categorize the entire sprint planning meeting process into two phases. First one is scope of the meeting. The team chooses the prioritized tasks list from the product backlog items, which they can complete during the sprint process. Here are a few questions that could be considered for the meeting agenda. What is your sprint goal? This question can be used to filter out the product backlog items to be included in the sprint. What are completed product backlog items and its contribution towards the sprint goal? Who will take care of the particular sprint process? What is the capacity of the team? Considering the team's capacity and sprint goal, what elements need to be included in the sprint backlog? How confident is your team about achieving the sprint goal? Next is planning. Here the team discusses how to deliver the selected product backlog items. This step includes identifying the tasks listed in the product backlog items. You also need to consider the item's dependency and assign product backlog items to every team member. This slide explains task reevaluation concept and its importance. The performance and productivity of the team depends on the proficiency of sprint planning meeting. Here are some of the common mistakes during the project process lead to failed sprint. Extended meetings. Lack of task prioritization. Lack of shared vision. To overcome the above issues, the concept of task reevaluation is the best way to build your alignment, include important tasks in the sprint process, and reduce the overall time spent on sprint planning. When the team fails to prioritize the tasks, when there is no shared vision, and even when the long discussion doesn't resolve the issue, the prioritization concept came in. Initially, prioritization seemed to work well. But within a span of time, most tasks started becoming outdated. Gradually, there started appearing many issues. And the sprint planning meeting duration was extended. There comes the concept of evaluating the tasks. Reevaluating the tasks well ahead of time solves quite many issues that the team faces during the project meeting. Now you are familiar with the concept of task reevaluation. Here let us see how reevaluating the tasks improves the efficiency of the sprint planning meeting. Awareness of goals amongst the team. At times, there are chances of team members losing focus on tasks and miss the new priorities. It results in working on irrelevant tasks. So, product backlog grooming needs to be done before the meeting, as it helps to know what team members are doing, where they are heading towards, and task prioritization. Realizing priorities. Time is one of the most valuable resources that an organization should keep track of. Task reevaluation put the tasks on priority to the sprint. With time, we tend to forget the tasks at the bottom of the product backlog. Reevaluation prior to the sprint planning meeting can clarify such issues. Reduce discussion time. Upon completion of reevaluation process, we come up with a task list based on priority and descending order. Further, we can move updated priority tasks to the sprint. These things reduce the meeting time to less than half an hour. This slide explains how to plan for reevaluation process. Determine the duration of reevaluation. How often you need to reevaluate your tasks depends on the project and the work format. Most often, we keep it on a weekly basis. Set the deadline. The updated task priority list should be ready prior to sprint planning meeting. Set the reminders. Without having a reminder, there are chances of forgetting the reevaluation duration. To avoid this, it's better to set up reminders at your convenience. Finally, let's conclude by saying, reevaluation process helps too. Have a clear vision of relevant objectives. Focus on essential tasks on your list. Remove long plan discussions. The last part of the session includes common sprint planning meeting mistakes that one needs to avoid. Here are a few. Unprepared product backlog. Not defining priorities and goals clearly. No sprint plan agenda. Forget to plan a roadmap. Fail to check sprint velocity. Doing sprint planning without data. Ignoring definition of ready. Not pulling the stories to the sprint. Ignoring the importance of sprint goal or agenda. Starting a sprint without having a proper name. The entire process of a sprint planning meeting can be daunting initially. If all the essential steps are properly followed, and the team is ready to go ahead, it is an incredible process in the Scrum event. We hope this video helps you to conduct sprint planning meeting effectively. Are you planning to become a Scrum certified professional? We are here to help you. At Invensis Learning, we provide various Scrum certification training worldwide. Enroll now and take the next step in the world of Scrum. For more updates on trending technologies, subscribe to Invensis Learning YouTube channel. Also, if you have any queries, share them with us in the comments section.